Matthew, I used to have this teacher that it was foolproof. Every day we would take a quiz. Like it was just like a daily assignment, I guess. I don't know if that's how he took roll, or if he was just like, I need to occupy the first 10 minutes of the class with something.
He's like, I'm not ready to deal with these kids yet.
But we would walk in and, the time would begin, the bell would ring, and he would say, all right, class, everybody take out a piece of paper and a pencil. We are going to take a quiz.
So it's not really a pop quiz at that point because it's coming every day.
True. But sometimes he would just say, write your name at the top, and he'd say, number 1. All right, turn it in. That's your grade for the day. Everybody gets 100. That's how I'm going to take attendance today.
Shout out to that guy. 100 quiz for free there.
Dr. Haney, thank you very much. But other times he would give us the test. I'm just like, what's the purpose of this, man? Like, if you're going to do attendance, like, just call our names out. Don't make us like scare us thinking that like there's something behind like prepping for a test and getting everybody nervous. And I'm throwing prayers up to the Lord to give me supernatural ability on what I didn't study for.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't know, it's busy work or
man, I hated that. I hated busy work. That was my like number one pet peeve in school, other than just going to school, period. My number one.
Shout out teachers. We love you.
Yeah, we do. We love you now when you're taking care of our kids. But back in the day, we weren't so fond of you. I hated it when the teacher would give us busy work. I would finish, an assignment early or whatever. And then it's like, okay, well, here, do this. Well, what is this? It's like, well, it's just a worksheet. Okay. Is it going to be graded? No, like, it's just so that I don't get to sit there and do nothing. And I'm like, well, just let me sit here and do nothing. Like, I've done what you gave me to do, what was important, and now you're just giving me something that's going to bear no fruit. Sometimes they just give you like a crossword puzzle, and I'm like, that does nothing for me. Like, what are we doing with all this busy work? I hated that. I wanted everything to have a purpose. Okay. If not, then just let me read the book that I checked out from the library, or let me read this magazine that I got, the Sports Illustrated, so I could see what's going on in the sports world or whatever. Like don't make me do that. So. I mean, you had the idea for the waiting room, which is great. Love the theme. We're on day 19 right now?
Yeah, something like that.
Crazy that we're here.
Home stretch.
That we're almost done. It's been really fruitful. Lots of good things, but oftentimes in the waiting, it doesn't seem like that waiting can feel like busy work. Like what good is it? Why wait? I feel like it's not producing anything. Is there anything positive that comes from waiting?
Yeah, it's interesting about the schoolwork. You said, man, does it have a purpose?
Like,
if it has a purpose, then I'm in. Like, I'll do it. Like, I understand. And so does waiting have a purpose? Is it just like God's preoccupied over here and he doesn't want to deal with your situation? So just wait there. Do this crossword while read these verses while I'm busy over here. Today is a little bit unique because instead of just one passage, I chose this theme about testing and what actually is the reason behind the test of waiting. Mm-hmm. What could possibly be going on? What could God be trying to do and accomplish in our lives? And so I chose one passage for us to read in 2 Corinthians today, but it's actually 5 different tests that occur in 5 different passages. And in Matthew is the first one. Sometimes a waiting will actually test our identity, and it determines who you are and like who you belong to, and your identity impacts how you act, what you believe, how you wait, how long you're willing to wait. And so sometimes I believe that God in the testing will say, I want to test your identity and who you belong to, who you put your trust in. As a child of God, if you are a child of God, you're going to wait and trust and maintain your level of faith very differently than somebody that might be outside of the faith. And so sometimes there's a process of when the going gets tough and when we go through a difficult season, our ability to wait on the Lord just proves that we are, in fact, a son or a daughter of the Lord. We're a follower of His. Next thing it says is it tests our faith. How much are you willing to believe and trust in the Lord? The passage there in 1 Peter, Peter says here, like your trials And like, make no mistake about it, waiting is a trial that we go through. It is a difficulty that we face in life, a struggle that we have. And he goes through this long list of like, this is actually the purpose behind the trial and the test.
I'm so glad that God gives us that. Like, that's so nice of him to tell us what he's doing.
Yeah.
Rather than just saying, all right, here's your life and you've got to deal with it. I love that.
Yep. Though your faith is being tested, we're going to find out if your faith is true in the waiting time. The third one is it tests our sense of purpose. Throw back to James. You know, we preached through James last year, and James makes it clear, second verse of the whole book. He's like, man, I want to get this on the table first. Maybe one of the most famous verses. He says, "Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial." You're being tested, and so like the waiting produces perseverance, which then produces something in our lives. Perseverance will produce a crown of glory for you and will illustrate the love that you have for God. So maybe God is producing something in the midst of your test, the purpose that God is reiterating in our lives. Next is our obedience. We talked about this multiple times throughout the 21 days of prayer. Maybe the waiting is God saying, I want to see if you're going to be obedient to what I've already told you to do. The servants, when they turned the water into wine, it was a test of obedience. Right. One of the first few days that you talked about was, hey, what are you going to do? Are you going to be obedient to take the next step?
Simeon and Anna, we talked about that.
Exactly.
Luke chapter 2, yeah.
They were obedient for decades.
Right.
So that's another test. And then finally, it tests us ultimately to rely on the Lord. And Paul, again, in 2 Corinthians, paints this picture of like, we were under, I appreciate the honesty from Paul. He says, we were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired. Like, it was rock bottom for us, guys. And it was really tough and really hard. And then it says, but indeed, we felt the sentence of death, but this might happen so that we might not rely on ourselves, but we would rely on God who raises from the dead. So maybe God will allow you to be in a pattern of waiting to help you to understand, ultimately, man, I don't need for you to rely on yourself. I need for you to rely on me. And it's our opportunity to prove, hey, I don't like this waiting. It's uncomfortable. I'd rather not be here, but I just need to make the commitment that during this time, I'm going to fully submit and rely on God, even when it feels like we're close to death.
Yeah, and all that sort of stuff is good for us too. I mean, especially the dependence at the end, the reliance, like it literally says in there, God who raises from the dead. So stop relying on you, who can't do anything and who's going to die one day, and start relying on the one who can do anything and everything, even raising people from the dead. Yeah, it's like that's so good for you. Yep. And God's like, if it takes waiting, if it takes some trials, if it takes some struggle, if it takes spending a little bit of time in the waiting room, then it's worth it. And hopefully we can have that mindset too of like, man, if that's what it's going to produce, dependence on this great and powerful, mighty, awesome God, then okay, I'm willing to spend some time in the waiting room.
Yep, that's it. So as you continue to pray, I want to challenge you today. Every time you pray, assume that the professor is standing in front of you and saying, all right, take out a piece of paper, because this is going to be a test. This is going to be on this. Waiting is going to be a part of the test that God passes by our hearts and our minds as we find ourselves in the waiting room. Maybe it's one of these 5 tests that's identified. Maybe it relates to one of the other passages that we've talked about already over the past 19 days or so. Either way, I want to pass the test. I want to know that a test is coming. I want to know I'm taking the test, and that God has given me an opportunity to prove some things in my life, my reliance, my faithfulness, my obedience, my identity, and ultimately my purpose in calling out to God and wanting to know what He has next for my life. Don't fail the test.